Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I've got Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing?
Doing good, Jamie. Doing good. How are you enjoying the end of days?
It's been good. We'll obviously talk about all that stuff later on. But the reason I'm so calm about everything normally when it comes to gaming, we're supposed to enjoy these games, right? And people losing their marbles at the beginning of the year does not help anyone at all. And obviously we're going to talk about the nitty and gritty, but like today's show, especially with today's news and some things I heard last year, like we've got an extremely positive show. But we've had 2 weeks off for Christmas. I would have had the big video out by now, but it'll be out during the week. I burned my hand by accident the day after New
Oh
Year's
no.
Day. Yeah, so I haven't been able to use a mouse. So today I've had to type with only my left hand and use a mouse with my left hand. But outside of that, it's been a good 2 weeks, much needed. And during the Christmas break, Logan, have you played anything good or interesting?
Well, I did put some time into Baldur's Gate 3, which some of you might have heard about. Rather enjoyed it until it went poof and is gone. Thankfully, it sounds like they have a fix coming in the next couple weeks that like next week on the 16th they'll have it. If you manually update it, it should theoretically restore your saves, and if not then the week after. If it actually brings my saves back, I will jump back in where I left off. If not, I'm probably just gonna wait a while to jump back in because 40 plus hours, high level characters, high level spells, abilities, progression, like basically done with 2 out of 3 acts. Like, yeah, it kind of really sucked that there weren't my holiday game. But besides that, been playing Forgive Me Father, wrapping it up. I'm on like one of the last two missions. Really fun Cthulhu type boomer shooter. And I'm about to start on RoboCop and the Terminator, the enhanced version for Series X. So that's what I've been up to, man. How about you?
Mainly Avatar, the Frontiers of Pandora, and RoboCop. I've been going back and forth. I got a bunch of games for Christmas, so like those are the two I'm focused on right now. And I have to say, obviously we're going to be talking about all the interesting topics. I want to talk about RoboCop for a little bit because we used to get so many licensed games on the Xbox 360 and the original Xbox and that. And for the longest time, I'd say on the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation, licensed games were really rare. And even though we used to get a lot of movie tie-in games on the 360, not a lot of them were good, but I still appreciated them. And it looks like we're getting to a point where we're getting these not only licensed games back, but good games. Like RoboCop is genuinely great. And it's a double A game, and there's people that hate double A games. The second you mention the term double A, they hate it. They don't want to play it, but it's arguably one of the best looking games ever made. It uses Unreal Engine 5. The visuals alone, I'm not even kidding, my jaw was on the floor. There's like parts of Detroit, I'm just looking at the ground because there's like 3D cracks in the ground, which you don't really see in a lot of games. Just the reflections. I'm playing it in 60 frames mode, and I've got ray tracing. Like the developers have done an amazing job. They really have. And the best thing about it, it's genuine RoboCop. Peter Weller, proper full-on RoboCop from the 80s. And if you're like me and you pretend that the third film doesn't exist because it doesn't exist, this is the third film. Genuinely, I'd actually say it's probably one of the best games of 2023. And it's a shame not a lot of people are talking about it because it's a licensed game or a double A game. But honestly, I'm looking at the past year, and some of the best games are actually double A games. Like, it's crazy. Like Everspace 2, double A game, one of the best games of the year. You have RoboCop, and I know like Avatar it isn't double A, it is triple A, but it's still a licensed game, and that is one of the best games of the year as well. So like, I think you're gonna enjoy RoboCop. I think everyone listening will love RoboCop. Fighting Ed 209 was a pain, but it turns out I was playing on hard, so maybe don't do that to yourself. It was very painful. But Avatar, I have to say, every single time I've made a post on Twitter or on here about Avatar, I always get the reply, it's Far Cry but blue people. And I get it, right? When we got the gameplay last year for Avatar, I immediately thought, as a Far Cry fan, yes, it's Far Cry but with blue people. But I love Avatar from 2009. And I loved The Way of Water from 2022. Yeah. And this game is amazing. It hits all those beats that you want from the film. And like, it's weirdly vertical. You don't see games with full-on mountains, and like, this game has floating mountains which you can fly to and get collectibles. And I don't know, it's weird because as a sci-fi fan, and I like things like hover cars, spaceships, and all that stuff, this game is I'm trying to think how to say this without getting demonetized. It's a hippie's wet dream. It's because you go around getting, like, stroking wildlife, hunting wildlife. You're getting like apples or space apples from trees and stuff. It's just relaxing, but it's good, and it does have the only Far Cry thing about Avatar is the outposts. Outside of that, it's very much its own thing. And if you look at all Ubisoft games, all of their games have outposts. Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, Ghost Recon. Probably the next Rainbow Six game will have, outposts. But hey, it's a good game. I highly recommend people play it. It has some really cool quality of life features I love. So, for instance, when you've fallen from like any like height, you can just press up on the D-pad, and your Ikrin will actually catch you, which is really cool. It basically acts as a personal parachute. And it's just good. It's just good. You can collect your arrows from enemies you've slain. Each different thing in the world, like different animals or different plants, have different status effects depending on when you pick them up. So if you pick up like I'm just going to make the name up because they've all got weird names. The blue apple, when it's raining and at night, it may be a higher quality thing than during the day. It's a small thing, but it's so refreshing. And normally I hate games like this where you have to like overthink of when you collect things, but it's just good. It's good. And if you like Avatar from 2009 and The Way of Water, it is spectacular. And I wanted to talk about it because it hasn't gotten a lot of love since it came out. I think it released at a weird time. 2023 was arguably one of the best years in gaming ever. So a licensed game for a film that basically came out in 2009 kind of got overlooked. But I do think that is going to have long legs. I think that's going to sell over the next year. It's got multiple expansions coming out with multiple. There's a new region in the second expansion which comes out later this year. I'm not kidding. People, if you're on the fence, and if you like Avatar, and if you like Far Cry, even the outpost system of Far Cry, get this game. Amazing. Logan, do you think you'll be picking up Avatar at all?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Avatar. I still remember going to see the first one in theaters and being just blown away by just how insane the 3D effects were and how lifelike these, like Avatar type beings were, and like the whole like tentacles connect of hair, and like the tree spirit, and like all the mushroom things, and like the flying pterodactyls, and like mechs, and it's just such a cool world. So yeah, I'm gonna dive in.
Yeah, and one of the weird things about that game is that you play as 9-foot tall blue dudes. So you have to get used to everything being smaller. So you're walking around and you see mechs that are, smaller. You see these little tiny people walking on the ground. You're like, oh yeah, I am playing as a 10-foot tall blue alien. So, which is really cool. And yeah, I hope more people play it. But we've got a lot to go over today. Let's get into all the topics because it's going to get wild. So, by the way, for people listening, hope you enjoy the show. Please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. The past 48 hours have been up and down roller coaster for Xbox fans because of everything that happened. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I just want to say that people need to calm down. It's all good. Microsoft, they're working on next generation hardware. I'll get this out of the way quick, even though we will do a deep dive later on in the show. Microsoft's working on next generation hardware. They're working on more first party games than ever before. They bought Activision. They're looking to buy more studios. There was no leaks in their court documents that said they want to go third party. If people legitimately think that Microsoft is going third party or thinking about it, they just need to take a step back, chill out. It's not happening. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let's get into all the topics. Okay, I'll get this out of the way quick because a few people have asked me. So Microsoft Rewards, I've said time and time again, it's the best loyalty service ever. Unfortunately, over time they've changed it. Different ways to earn points. It's gone down. It's gone up some countries, and basically every week on a Tuesday we would get these things called Game Pass quests, where you do X thing in a game, you get X amount of points, and you normally get about 250. And I think there was one for 10 points every week. Well, they've changed it. And some people have just told me today they've just realised. So I'm going to give people a handy tip. That sounded weird. So, when it comes to Microsoft points, you have to do a bunch of things over a month now. You have to get X amount of achievements in Game Pass games and log into a Game Pass game every day over the course of a month I think it's a month and 10 days. There are a bunch of games on Game Pass where you can get an achievement by just doing simple things straight away. So basically, Ravenlock is a very fun action RPG where if you play that maybe 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day or whatever, you'll get an achievement and unlock that. Now, the thing about the way the achievement system works, and not many people know this, I don't know if you know this, Logan, but that daily achievement thing is weird. Sometimes it doesn't unlock for people, and it's because, at least in the UK, and as far as I know, it works the same in other countries, you have to earn the achievement after 6 p.m. local time. I've tested.
Oh, that's. Oh.
Yeah, I've tested this a bunch of times, and if I get an achievement in a Game Pass game before 6 p.m., it doesn't register. So a lot of people have told me different times they've actually did it, and yeah, it doesn't work. So that's why a lot of people can't get those points. You have to get the achievement after 6 p.m. But a few other games I'll mention. Venba. It's a cool little cooking game with family. Easy 1000G. And bear in mind, you're going to be getting one achievement each day by playing these games slowly. But over time, you're going to be getting thousands of achievements. So that's good as well. Also, Vampire Survivors. And Logan, as you know, that game spits out achievements at you.
Oh yeah, it's obscene.
Yeah, like anytime you play that, you get an achievement. So just thought I'd give a quick update on that because Microsoft Rewards, even though they've taken away the ability to get a lot of points easily, you can still get a lot of points to get your Game Pass and games and whatnot. Like hell, that's how I bought my Starfield controller, with points. So there's a lot of value in that, and yeah, obviously when they make changes, it disappoints people, but at the end of the day, you can still get the same amount of points, just in a different way. It's inconvenient. I do know that. It's inconvenient the way they've done it. Hopefully they roll it back, but you can still get the same amount. Anyway, thought I'd mention that because over the past week, people have told me they can't get the achievement, but Microsoft Award quests, and that's why, because it's different in each region apparently. Anyway. Oh, let's make fun of mainstream media for a moment. So Hogwarts Legacy, it's a good game, damn good game.
The game exists.
Yeah, that game exists, and there was so much made of controversy about that game before it came out. I know that a bunch of developers from over there at Avalanche, they were heartbroken because the game wasn't in the media for what the story's about, what's the setting like. Anything. It was about made-up controversy because of the person that created the intellectual property. And there was this made-up boycott for it. And it really disappointed me because, do you want to know the truth, people, about video game boycotts? They don't exist. If I tell you, Logan, I am not buying Madden this year. I'm boycotting it. But I've never bought Madden in my entire life. Has the company seen any negative result? People that weren't going to buy Hogwarts Legacy were saying online, "I'm not buying Hogwarts Legacy," and it was this weird thing people were doing. And it's a great game. Is it perfect? Hell no. Is any game perfect? Hell no. But it was a fun game. I highly recommend people play it. But anyway, it reached over 23 million sales, which is awesome, and over 2 million extra sales over Christmas, which I said was going to happen because it's a massive game for like Christmas. But it's been great to see a game that was basically crapped on from a mile high do so well. Like, hey, hell, and you probably saw this, Logan. The Game Awards, it wasn't nominated for a single thing. Not anything. Not best soundtrack, not best art design, nothing like that. Nothing. And then when the announcement goes live of how many sales they've got, the the Game Awards Twitter account posted, "Hey, it sold 22 million." So it's like, now you care because you want Twitter attention. And I don't know. Like, Logan, do you think you'd be picking that up at any point? Because I know you're not the biggest Harry Potter fan, but it's still a good game.
Yeah, it's one I do plan on getting eventually. It does look good, and like at the end of the day, even if I'm not the biggest fan of an IP, if I like the story or the game mechanics or world that they're trying to create as a game experience, I'll check it out. So yeah, I reckon I will.
Yeah, I mean, but you don't really have to be a fan of an IP to enjoy the game. I put it like this: I play almost any, and I mean any Warhammer game. I've not read a single Warhammer book. I have not painted a single Warhammer dude. I just like Warhammer games. And I know nothing about that universe. Although I should read some books about it. But still, I know nothing about that universe, yet I insist on playing every single game that comes out. Especially Space Marine. That was amazing. But yeah, just wanted to talk about that because Hogwarts Legacy doing well. It was just some really good news. You know what, Logan? Let's get the Baldur's Gate stuff out the way because, wow. So Baldur's Gate comes out last year. It's beloved. People love it. It does amazing in sales on PC, and then it went to PlayStation. Funny enough, I never saw anyone post clips from PlayStation. Anyway, so it does really well and all this stuff. And we all know about the controversy about it not running co-op on the Series S and all that stuff. Well, anyway, the game eventually comes to Xbox on its shadow dropped during the Game Awards, which was really cool, and had a bunch of hype and all this stuff. And for some reason, a save bug got past testing, and a lot of people are losing saves. Now, if you're like me and you lose a save for an RPG, it's soul crushing. It is absolutely soul crushing. I lost a 45-hour save in Yakuza 0. That's why I quit that game. I was like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And so now whenever I hear about a save glitch for any game, I take a wide berth. I stay far away until it's fixed. And even then, I'll wait a little bit longer to make sure, is it really okay? But Logan, how many hours of progress did you lose?
I well, basically, I got it as an early Christmas gift, and so I started a few days before Christmas, and I had played it through the break, and I had almost wrapped up Act Two, and then I realized I'll be very vague to avoid spoilers for stuff, but basically, I realized there was a whole other area I could backtrack to and complete as kind of like an Act 1.5 before finishing 2. So I had gone back and I was in the process of doing that before wrapping up Act 2. And then my Xbox starts acting funky and is like, it's like refusing to sync the saves and like just like keeps knocking me out of my account and like all this weird stuff. And then like I tried resetting the Xbox multiple times. I did the Larian account thing. I did the Sync Cloud save thing. I did all this stuff that they had put out there. And lo and behold, my 40 plus hours, my very high tier character with tons of story and side quest and all this other progress is just poof gone. I turn on the game and it's like, hi, let's start you a new account. And would you like to adjust your brightness? And you want to enable graphic features or, like all the basic reset stuff. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And I tried fixing it a bunch, but lo and behold, up a creek. So I'm like, you know what? I am going to punt this to the moon until they fix this and go play something else. So I went back to FPS, quick little boost type games, and I love the game. It's really good. It deserves all the kudos it got. But in the year of our Lord 2024, you should not be having debilitating save snatching bugs for AAA games. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, that should not be, that shouldn't fly, period. So, I know Larian's independent and they're a little bit smaller, but still, how that got through processing and how it wasn't, a major issue for other platforms, at least that I've heard of, that it was only with Xbox. Is that with Larian's issue? Is that Xbox's issue? I don't know. Point is, it shouldn't be a thing. It's horrible, and I can't in good faith recommend the game until it's, you wait a couple weeks for the update to come out and they fix it. Because just don't. I was a moron and I kind of assumed that, oh, I've heard there's been a few issues, but it won't affect me. It hasn't affected anybody I know. Lo and behold, I messed around, I found out. So, learn from me, don't do that.
Yeah, I feel bad for you, man, because if that happened to me in an RPG like that where it's difficult, I'd be taking that Xbox toaster and dropping it in the bath. Like to deal with my pain because I'm like the hurt from a deleted save from an RPG is awful, like very awful. I've had it a bunch of times in the past. I remember, and I know it wasn't an RPG back when I think it was when BioShock came out. I lost all my
Oh my
progress
gosh, yes.
right before the end mission, and like I just lost it. But yeah, it's a bit it's awful. I think people need to avoid that game, and I have no idea how it got past testing. Like they meant to have Q&A teams and like that actually test these things out, like full on teams of people, and it just gets past that. And then there's the whole DVR functionality thing with it. So people have obviously been taking advantage of DVR because you can, I'm trying to think how I can not demonetize while saying this. You can make characters wear less clothes than they normally would, and you can take screenshots and video, and there's scenes in the game that are risque. And apparently, if you take pictures of video and it gets uploaded to the cloud, you get banned from Xbox Live and all that stuff. Now, as someone that plays Mass Effect and BioWare games, I'm well aware of this issue. I do not do that. It is in Microsoft's terms of service. I'm not actually defending Microsoft when I say this. I think it's called artistic license, right? It's a video game. Video games are art. Just let people mess about with it. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's just video games. Like, if you play Cyberpunk and do some of those missions, some of those missions are very grim when it comes to the storyline. But you can take pictures and videos of that and upload it to the cloud, and it's fine. Yet at the same time, when someone's wearing less clothing than they normally would, it's a problem. But fortunately, if it's anyone's first defense doing it, they are apparently going to roll it back. But people just need to be careful. Until there's eventual change, they just need to be careful. And speaking of DVR stuff, all of people's DVRs got deleted today, or at least is going to get deleted today. And I checked my DVR on the Xbox Cloud. I had screenshots going back 8 years. 8 years. I've already downloaded it all, but I have old clips. But yeah, people just need to be careful with that stuff. I think the auto upload to cloud thing should be disabled. When you get the console, but I think it's on automatically. But yeah, people just need to be careful with that because you don't want to lose your save and get banned from Xbox Live. So yeah, be careful. It's a weird situation. Hopefully, Larian actually convinces Microsoft to maybe roll that back a bit and put out a full-on save fix, because apparently Larian have solved the issue behind saves. But anyway, that's we'll talk about that next time. You know what? I've seen this being going on in the US lately, and I'm pretty sure most people listening are from the US, or actually what I'm about to say is going to affect most people. Physical media. I just saw that Best Buy in the US is going to stop, or at least has stopped selling physical media in the US. Is that right?
Yes, they had for a while been kind of culling it slowly. Like they had gotten rid of all their TV shows and their movies, and then, but they had still had games. But it seems like they're really just rolling back physical media in general now.
Yeah, I hate to see it because like a lot of people in the UK are full on digital now. I think, and we've talked about this before, a lot of Xbox players in the UK are digital simply because it's easy to buy games. You know, our video game stores nationwide pretty much shut down 50% of the stores. I think it's actually more than 50% in 2013. We've gone a long time without a video game store in a lot of major cities. My city, Durham, doesn't have a video game store, and they haven't since 2013. So, like, a lot of people are used to buying things off Amazon, but the problem is that if you buy a game off Amazon, you always recommended the PlayStation version first. So if you search, I don't know, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, and you type in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 Xbox, you actually get shown the PlayStation version. And that happens with every single game. Every single game. And people in Spain have told me that this happens, Germany, Australia, Canada, that for some reason, no matter how many times you type a game in, followed by the word Xbox, you get shown the PlayStation version. So people have told me they just buy digital now. It's less hassle and it's simple. And in the US, that's happening as well. Like physical media is a weird thing because so many people latched onto DVDs. Games used to be DVDs, if you remember. But when the shift to Blu-ray happened, Blu-ray players were so expensive, nobody bought them. The PlayStation 3 was a joke in the UK for being so expensive. And that was the most affordable Blu-ray player. So nobody adopted Blu-ray. And then we go, 15 years till we get 4K Blu-rays. And then the major adoption by 4K Blu-ray, Xbox players, right? Xbox One X and One S players. Those were the main people that adopted 4K Blu-ray. But out of the entire market of people that need to support a digital medium such as a disc format, obviously not enough people are buying it because that has to be hundreds of millions of people, not tens of millions of people. But you still have DVDs at the top of the charts around the world. Around the world. And for me, like when I first moved to Blu-ray, like my eyes were like, okay, this is 1080p, right? This looks good. And then it happened with 4K Blu-ray. And, in the UK, physical media has been dying a slow death for about 15 years. Let's call it 13. And it's just been happening, Netflix came out, Disney Plus, all those things. Games are sold digitally. Because remember, on the 360 and PlayStation 3, not all games were digital. A major AAA title people have been anticipating for months, even years, would come out on a Friday and then not get released digitally. That's why a lot of big games aren't backwards compatible because they didn't even release them digitally. Mass Effect 2 and 3 never got released digitally on the Xbox store, so they were put on the, Xbox Live in 2018, I believe. And that's just the weird state of all these things. And it's a shame. Like, Logan, what's all this mean to you? Because, over here, actually, before we get into all that, we have the first Super Chat of the day. Thank you very much. And the first Super Chat of the year by Nick W. for $9.99. Thank you very much. He says, what was the most disappointing game you've ever played? You know what? The Mummy Returns on PlayStation 2. My mini rant. That game is the biggest pile of crap I've ever played. I loved The Mummy as a kid. I loved it. And then The Mummy Returns comes out, and it was a PlayStation 1 looking game on a PlayStation 2, and it was awful. Imagine, it was like I was woken up on Christmas Day, and I was kicked in the nuts. That's what it felt like, because I was so excited for it. Because I was thinking, oh, it's going to be, because back then you used to go off, looking at the pictures off the back of the box in the shop, right? And I just played it, and it was awful, genuinely awful. Like, and I'm not even going back to all the old Atari games that like my parents had, but like genuinely a game I was looking forward to, and then it came out, and it was that game, The Mummy Returns, PlayStation 2, absolutely awful, just awful. What about you, Logan?
I'd say Super Mario. Not Super Mario. Superman 64. Big
Oof.
difference. Superman 64 was horrible. Just awful, atrocious. Like, there's a reason we don't get very many Superman games,
Yeah.
and he's really hard character to try to make a game for because he's supposed to be, like this omni being, but it somehow still be fun and balanced at the same time. And then you add the technical limitations of the era. It was just horrible. I remember Power Ranger 64 was pretty awful. Um, let's see. I've played a few just truly trash games. I'm trying to think. What's another good one? Um,
I tell you what was a bad
I
game.
don't know.
Any Star Wars game on the Game Boy that was about the prequel films.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like
Yep.
I remember there was a like Galaxy Quest or something. Like I think it might have been set in the original trilogy, but it was Game Boy Advance and it was pretty awful.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was just called like Anakin's Revenge or something on the Game Boy Advance. And again, back then you went off the picture of the back of a box, and you had what, like 3 or 4 images to go off, and that was your purchasing decision. And yeah, it was awful. It was awful. Like, I think back then nobody finished Game Boy games. Unless they were like the genuinely good ones, like your Zeldas or your Final Fantasies and Mario's and stuff. But like that was like absolute trash fire. Oh, before we go back to the original topic, Star Wars Bombad Racing on the PlayStation 2.
Oh, with the big
Yeah,
heads, yes.
yeah, that was
That one
awful.
was hilarious.
Yeah, it was a Mario
Ugh.
Kart 64 rip-off, but like, and it didn't play bad, but it was blatantly made for online. But it was a single player game, or you could do two-player split screen. But it was awful. It was awful. If that came out today and had online support and like full on, like 18 player races, it would have been fun. But it was before its time, and it was just lacking that, because that came out in a time where we were getting good Star Wars games every few months. Like every few months we were getting a good Star Wars game, and then that came out. The steaming turd of that game came out. But yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for the 9.99, Nick W. Those games were terrible. Logan, the physical game situation in the US, and also media. Like, I know it's a newer thing over there where like stores are pulling the discs off the shelves, and it's going to affect gaming a lot in the US. What's your take on the whole thing? Because I know you like physical as well.
Yeah, it sucks, frankly. I mean, just to be blunt, it's bad. Like I get why there are more people who are digital now leaning than there has ever been. It's probably cheaper production wise to not have to worry about it and then make the cases, even though you could say, like, how much does the disc really cost or a case? But, millions and millions of units, I get it. You have space concerns like, well, this is in this digital ethereal cloud versus it's on my shelf. But that's part of the appeal of physical. It's on my shelf. I can, that new case smell, or back in the day, in the golden era when they actually gave you a manual or a cool little storybook or map or something with your game, and it was so cool. And it would come with like lore and all kinds of stuff alongside, ABXY does this, and you know, it just It's a shame, but Target is basically removing most, if not all, their Xbox games. I know their PlayStation 5 uh, catalog was pretty limited last I saw. Um, Best Buy, obviously, we talked about. Places like GameStop have been, like they're basically like hanging on by a thread right now. And it's really hitting everything. The pandemic really changed how, like, for those who were on the fence before, it
Yeah.
it was really kind of the shove over the fence for a lot of people, to where people weren't going out or doing this or that, and like, oh, I'll just buy it online or buy it digitally, whatever. And then it became commonplace that digital's how I do it now. And I'm more digital than I've ever been before, even though there's still something special to me about physical. Like, if I had the choice, like, I know there are people who always come at me with the, yeah, but they could, do this or this and resell it. But I wish it was like movies where you buy a fancy steelbook movie, 4K comes with the Blu-ray as well, and then a digital code to where you can watch your awesome movie anywhere you go, truly. On Movies Anywhere or Vudu or on your 4K player or on your Blu-ray player. I wish it was like that with games, to where you could buy a game and you have it physically, you have it on your shelf, it's super cool, but it also comes with a digital code to where you can, install it at a friend's house or do this or that or play it on the go, whatever. I know there are obvious loopholes for that, to where people could theoretically buy a game, download the code, and then just ship off the game to a used store place, even though you'd be losing money by trading it in immediately anyway. But like, I wish that was how the system worked, even though I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Blu-ray thing because you buy your 4K Blu-ray, you get the 4K disc and the regular 1080p Blu-ray disc. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but companies have stopped shipping the regular Blu-ray in the case. So like, imagine my surprise! I got Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One on 4K Blu-ray, and I open it up and there's one disc there. And I'm thinking, that's strange. Like, don't these 4K Blu-rays tend to come with a regular one? Like, no. I've looked into it. Companies in the UK have started to, stop giving you two discs. So I was annoyed. And the thing is, I don't use the 1080p disc, but it's the fact that I don't get it anymore that angers me. It's the illusion of choice, right? It's taken away from me. But yeah, it's happening in the US as well, and the game thing. Like I put it like this, like you said, the pandemic, like that changed people's buying habits. People that went to the store couldn't go to the store anymore to buy things, and they've just shifted to digital. And in the UK, like I put it like this, I know one person that buys physical still. That is crazy, right? And it's getting like that. It's getting worse everywhere else, and I don't know. Like I've said it before, like Microsoft and Sony, I think they have one more generation of physical media. I think whenever the Xbox 6, I'm just going to call it Xbox 6 because they can jump 5. I think that and the PlayStation 6 will come with, detachable disc drives, much like the PlayStation Slim thing. And that will be the way you play your physical backwards compatible discs. Because like nobody's buying them. Right? It's just becoming landfill. And I hate that. I honestly think the last video game disc that's going to come out that has, the game manual and the map and stuff, it's going to be GTA 6. That will be the last game that ever comes out where it comes with a physical map and a little thank you note inside, like what they did with GTA 5, It's a shame. I hate to see it, but I mean, it was inevitable. It's bound to happen. I think the scarier thing is that you have these mobile phones, and I've heard from particular publishers that they are really looking into putting these AAA games on mobile, which they are digital. So you're going to see more AAA games on iPhone 15 or whatever the next one's called. because you already have Resident Evil 8 on mobile. I think Assassin's Creed Mirage is on mobile as well, or at least it's coming to mobile. So you have these AAA games that are shipped digitally on everything, basically. And now you have developers looking into mobile as well, where, how many hundreds of millions of people have iPhones, you know? And those are potential customers to these AAA games, although those people mainly play Match 3 duel games. But yeah, it's a scary time, especially if you like physical media. And you're always going to have these people that are like, look, you don't own your game. And I get it, right? I see the value in a physical disc. I would love to own Hi-Fi Rush, which we'll be talking about in a bit, on disc. Because, one, I love the art in that game. I think it would make for an awesome collector's edition. And I just think, we are getting to that point where physical media is falling off fast. Most people, again, like I was saying, people didn't shift from DVDs to Blu-rays. That's why, in my opinion, that's why the movies and DVDs, physical media for movies and TV are being pulled. People didn't jump forward. You have these manufacturers, these 4K Blu-rays and these regular Blu-rays just aren't selling, yet DVDs still are. Like, the latest films get advertised on TV with DVDs on in the image. That's crazy. It's 2024, and DVDs came out in 2001, 2000. It's been a long time, and that's still the number one form of movie medium. By the way, bit of a tangent. It really angers me because TV shows are now getting 4K Blu-ray releases. It's only starting to happen in the UK. So Star Trek: Strange New World Season 2, 4K release. I'm going to get that. It's beautiful. I've seen it streamed, but it looks beautiful. And we're going to see less of that now because nobody's buying the bloody format. It's sad. It's really sad. A tear falls down my cheek. Anyway, we'll move on. I've been talking about physical media long enough. We have way too many topics to go over today. You know what? Let's get into it. So, a new game is coming to Game Pass. It's a game I've talked about before, and it's called Palworld. Very cool looking game.
You mean that's coming to Xbox?
Yeah, it turns out it is in fact coming to Xbox and not just Steam. Jeff Keighley really needs to sort that out. But anyway, it's a 3D open world Pokemon style game, but with a twist. You use guns. Machine guns, bazookas, guns in general, to take out Pokemon, and you capture them. It sounds weird to talk about because it is Pokemon with guns. And if you watch any of the trailers, they're holding bazookas and stuff. I don't care. It looks cool. But anyway, it's coming to Game Pass on day one on January 19th. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy that. You can play it in solo or up to 4-player co-op. There can be up to 32 players in an instance, which is really cool. So there's going to be crazy clips online of just people going nuts. But yeah, it's coming to Game Pass this month. Very cool announcement. Jeff Keighley's Game Awards account, for some reason, didn't acknowledge that it's coming to Xbox at all. Which, this has happened multiple times now, by the way. It is very strange that this keeps happening, especially from, look, Jeff Keighley isn't an outlet, but the account is big enough to be considered one. So when you have influence, you have to be responsible. You have to let people know stuff. And they are a multi-platform centric, apparently, account, and they just don't seem to report things coming to Xbox. We've seen this time and time again from other places, and especially considering this game has been showcased at, I think, 2 of the Xbox shows. It's been on mainly Xbox-related stuff, and yet it gets mentioned for Steam. And I just think that's a really weird look. Logan, what's your thought on that? Because, it was announced at an Xbox show basically a year ago, and now, we got the Game Pass drop news, and then Jeff Keighley says Steam.
Yeah, first on the Keighley thing. Yeah, this isn't the this has happened multiple times. And it's not just him. IGN, there's that infamous back and forth with the community about people are like, dude, why do you keep bloody not mentioning it's coming to Xbox? They literally had it at their showcase. You think Xbox is going to have at their showcase a game that's only coming to PlayStation and Switch? Like, what are you tripping? Like, of course it's on Xbox if it's on the Xbox showcase. Like, what is this? And so the fact that this just keeps happening is either, people are, you could give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're just trying to hurry and they're like, oh, I saw Steam first. I'll just type that and throw it out there. Boom, done. Like that's the casual, fast, ignorant, just get a post out, be done, move on. Or there's, more nefarious and tinfoil hat, like that they're purposely suppressing and like either way, it's just bad and dumb, and people should let them know. Don't be don't be hats about it, but just let them know that hey, it's coming to this platform too. You should edit that. As for the game itself, it looks awesome. Like I've 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 loved Pokemon my whole life. I grew up on it. It was my first game to ever beat, first RPG. Completing the original 151 Pokédex is still one of the, a crowning gaming achievement of mine. Like the idea of, Pikachu rocking a 12 gauge and you know, um blasting a Jigglypuff or something like that, who's strapped to the boots with bazookas and stuff. Just it sounds amazing. It sounds like just a fun acid trip of a animal monster collectible, and I am all for it.
Yeah, I mean, it is the 3D Pokemon game. I think a lot of people have been waiting for. Uh, I think it's look, obviously, I think Pokemon's always going to be a bigger and better game, right? This isn't a Palworld versus Pokemon situation because Palworld will never win. However, Palworld looks really impressive. Massive 3D open world. It's a proper third person game. I think a lot of people have wanted Pokemon to do something similar, obviously without the AKs. But as a kid, as someone that played Pokemon as a kid, I dreamed of a Pokemon game that looked like this, which is crazy because we're getting it on Xbox, and it has machine guns. So if you like shooters and you're on Xbox and happen to like Pokemon, well, weirdly enough, there's a game coming for you. That game exists. I'm surprised Nintendo hasn't sued them into oblivion because you know what they're like. But hey, it looks cool. It's coming in 10 days. I think a lot of people enjoy it. And plus, the memes from it are just going to be glorious. But yeah, Jeff Keighley needs to do better. And the thing is, I don't even know if it's him that runs that account. He could be paying someone to run that account, but if you run a account like that, you have to be responsible to let people know. And like the IGN thing, and I got into a conversation with one of the people from IGN, someone high up IGN. Like I said, like how does a game like Persona 3 Remake get announced at an Xbox show and not get listed in the database first? Like, could not give me a reasonable answer at all. Like maybe Sea of Stars I can understand, or Lies of P, maybe. But the fact that Persona 3 Remake was literally announced on a showcase for Xbox, they just forgot it. Like, it's weird. Like, I don't like the practices we're seeing from a lot of these media outlets, and yeah, that stuff continues. But hey, new Pokemon game coming to Xbox with guns. It looks cool. Oh, speaking of more Japanese games, Final Fantasy 14, the beta, starts on Xbox as of now. It's going to be late February. Personally, I can't wait to play it. I've been recommended it for years, so I think there's a lot of people that want to play this. But this is basically the first of many Final Fantasy games to come to Xbox. During, I think it was TGS, or like the Final Fantasy 14 show in Japan, Phil Spencer showed up and, showed up on stage, start talking about how the game is coming to Xbox finally. And, it was a big deal. I saw a lot of Japanese Final Fantasy content creators were losing their mind because that just means more players. And basically we were promised that we're going to see more Final Fantasy games on the platform. I think that was the major thing for people, because MMOs can be considered niche no matter how many millions of players play them. That will always be the case. World of Warcraft, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic Online or whatever. Like, MMOs are just looked at as niche. However, people wonder what's next. And I think we will see things like, the Final Fantasy 9 remake, which has been rumored for like a year now. I think we'll see that on Xbox, maybe 7 down the road. And yeah, I just think it's good news because that is the first of many, which is, obviously what we need to be hearing. Logan, do you think you'll be playing the Final Fantasy beta at all?
Final Fantasy 14 probably not. I might check it out, but MMOs generally aren't my thing. Like I would probably make an exception for Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic because I'm a diehard Star Wars guy, and you know how I feel about
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic in general. So that one or WoW, if it does indeed, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, probably come to Xbox at some point. Like I would that would make me happy and I'd play that. But aside from that, MMOs generally aren't my vibe. What I really want is that stupid pixel remaster that they have on a Fire tablet. Like, okay, surely it's not that hard to make the Xbox version. I thought that would have been out the next day, literally after Phil was on there. Like, it should not be hard to make that happen.
Yeah, that I want to have a mini rant about the Pixel remaster thing. When something like really annoys me to the point where like I'm trying not to swear, like I think I get like the eye twitch, the crazy eye twitch. Well, over Christmas,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
the whole situation with the Pixel remasters, like it makes no sense because those games could run on a toaster, a modern day toaster. Like that Xbox toaster has a screen on it. I think it could probably run these games. They are ancient games by technical standards. They can run on anything, and they put it on, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, your neighbor's fridge, Kindle tablets. Kindle tablets. But actually, before I continue, we have another super chat by Pyro Mad. Thank you very much for £2. He says, obligatory cassette based shout out, my indie goodie. I've got that downloaded. I haven't played it yet. It's got really good reviews from what I've seen. A lot of people have been talking about it. I like the fact that we get Pokemon clones. I played Pokemon as a kid. I dipped out when I finished Ruby. Yeah, it was Pokemon Ruby on the Game Boy Advance. I never got a DS, so I never played Pokemon. I can't even remember what those ones are called.
Black, White, and a whole bunch of other ones. Yeah,
there's so many. But like after Ruby, I just didn't play any Pokemon game. But like I love the fact that we're getting these clones now. You have the indie ones like cassette based. Again, I have it downloaded. Looking forward to playing it. Palworld and in 10 days. So I don't know. Like, Logan, did you play cassette based?
I have not. Which one?
Cassette based.
Oh, Cassette Beast. Okay, sorry. I played a few minutes of it and I kind of enjoyed it, but I never dove back in. But it's been one I've been wanting to play.
Yeah, I'll probably get to that and talk about it in a future show. But yeah, thank you very much for the £2 Pyro, Mad. That's something I want to play. But yeah, the Final Fantasy thing, it really annoyed me because over Christmas, my mother, she had the Kindle out, and I saw the Final Fantasy logo on the store.
It triggered.
Yeah, and bear in mind, she uses that tablet for those duel games where you match 3, and it's like I can't play this bloody Final Fantasy game on my Xbox, but they're on this tablet, a Kindle tablet. Who owns Kindle tablets? Well, a lot of people do, but still, like, what were they thinking? Like, Square Enix are mad, I tell you, absolutely mad. But yeah, hopefully, I think if anything, the Pixel remasters will be the first ones to come over. That's considering I'm guessing a random person, I could probably port it. Like those games are that old, it'd be like a line of code. But yeah, more games are coming, and Final Fantasy. And the thing about Final Fantasy 14 is like they normally do these long trials. Like as far as I know, you can play Final Fantasy 14's entire storyline in the trial, and you just have to pay for the expansions. Which, hey, that's a lot of game right there. And even though it is a subscription thing, and I'm kind of against single game subscriptions, if you can play the entire storyline for free, and if you like it enough, then I think that buying an expansion and maybe getting a few months isn't actually that bad of a deal if you really think about it. So hey, it's options for people, but yeah, looks like that's coming again. Xbox next month. You know what, Logan? We have we have a lot of big topics we're gonna have to talk about in a minute. If you're enjoying the show, again, it's the first show of the year. YouTube needs to get the link out there. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. It really just helps the channel out. If you want to support the show with super chats and want anything read out or questions or anything, that's all live and good. It helps the channel out. So Logan, Banjo-Kazooie. There's been rumors and rumblings for years whether one's going to happen, if it's going to happen. There was this rumor about 3 years ago that there's a new Banjo game happening, but it's going to be a Switch game. Although some person made that up on Reddit and had no proof. It was just a random dude. Well, anyway, there's been rumors this past week and a half that there's a new Banjo game coming. What's that about?
Yeah, it's kind of like a recycled older rumor that Banjo is in development. It's been greenlit. It's early development, like within the last year or change, and that they've heard everybody and that they are bringing back the Bear and Bird. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the fact that Phil himself, with that interview with Jez Corden, Windows Central, check it out. He mentioned by name, Banjo fans, I hear you, and that when he's worn Hexen shirts and other things and talked about these games by name, it's for a very good reason. He doesn't troll people. He doesn't, it might not happen in the timeline people want, but he doesn't say or do these things without cause. So I do think a Banjo game will be coming at some point. It might not be for a few years, but I do think in our lifetime we will see another Banjo game on Xbox. The fact though that this rumor is circulated by the same individual who has recently circulated some other stuff about Xbox's potential plans, may make it more accurate or may make it less accurate depending on your views. So, but we'll hop into that in a little bit.
Yeah, if you would ask me maybe 7 years ago or something, would a new Banjo game happen? And I hate the term insider, by the way. I absolutely hate that. It's very cringe. Whether someone knows every single person in the entire industry or not, the term insider is just cringe. I hate that. But from what I've heard, there's never been really a Banjo game in development for ever. And when it comes to this new Banjo thing, if you think about it, it makes more sense than anything, because I think these companies are now looking at how to make smaller games to, maximize the amount of revenue they're going to get. And again, some people don't like what I'm about to say is AA and smaller titles. And Banjo is one of those titles, what they could do, because you could have Toys for Bob. Now that they own Toys for Bob, they own a studio that is basically perfect for third-person, I should say 3D platformers. So to have them, and I'd bet all my money it's them, that you'd have them make a new Banjo game or a remake of the first two. I can see that happening. Again, smaller titles, they need things like platformers and Game Pass. Why do you think Killer Instinct got a next generation update? It wasn't just to make people just go back to it. It was to make newcomers play it. It was to get a new audience. So you have the Killer Instinct diehards talking about it on Twitter. You have new people that have never heard of it or played it before. They download the game for the first time and they maybe buy some stuff. And that with Banjo, they could sell a 3D platformer Banjo game for what, $40, and it would sell a lot. And the funny thing is, after that rumor came about, I already saw port begging by Switch accounts. It would only do well on Switch. It's no, it would do well on Xbox. People have so little faith in anything related to Xbox that a game, theory, being announced or rumor, people instantly port beg and they think of the worst thing ever. I do think the Banjo thing's going to happen. I do think the Banjo thing will happen in the next 2 years. That isn't a game that would take that. realistically, most AAA games today take 5 to 6 years, if they are big games. Banjo wouldn't be like that. Banjo would be a 2 to 3 year game, depending on the scale. And if Toys for Bob are making it, and in the past they've made reasonably sized games in a shorter period of time, they could probably put out a new Banjo game in 2 years. And who knows, we might see that in next year or the year after that. But I do think we will see Banjo return this generation. And you know what? While we're talking about all this new generation stuff, so after the last podcast went live, a bunch of Sony stuff leaked, and regards with Wolverine, Insomniac, and stuff. But one of the interesting things that came out in one of the documents is that apparently Sony, they are afraid of being behind Microsoft when it comes to their business plans and decisions, and this relates to everything we're going to be talking about in a bit, because they're worried about Microsoft having Activision and what that means when they put those games into Game Pass. Because believe me when I say, the second those Activision games go into Game Pass, there's a very high chance that they jump possibly 10 million subscribers, because you have all of the Call of Duty players that are on Xbox or want Call of Duty for a cheaper price. They are looking at Game Pass and thinking, oh, I can play Call of Duty for less money. Call of Duty sells millions year round. And especially if you have the back catalogue coming to Game Pass, like, Sony does not like the idea of that. Sony is behind when it comes to the ecosystem. If you buy an Xbox today, you know for a fact you can play over 600 360 games. You're going to play over 80 original Xbox games, thousands of Xbox One games, and I assume hundreds and hundreds of Xbox Series games. And all that's connected. You have your saves that work seamlessly. There's no effort on your part. And it's all done in the background. And all you have to do is think about, do I want to buy an Xbox? Yes, this game will work on it. On PlayStation, it's not like that. On PlayStation, you have to sync trophies, apparently, which sounds like a hassle. And like, you don't know if you're downloading the correct version of a game. Like, that sounds like too much hassle for me. Like, for me, the whole console experience is about minimalistic approach. Like, PC gaming's cool. Like, if people like PC gaming, that's awesome. I'm friends with people in real life that prefer PC. Like, PC players, like, they're a different thing. They like doing their own thing with mods and playing things at ultra, at like 155,000 hertz, which is cool. But console players typically like to hook up a box, press a button, and go. That's what we like. And with PlayStation, it's not really that easy when it comes to that stuff. And look at Sony, right? Sony doesn't have a live service title they can get constant revenue from, right? Game Pass has a ridiculous amount of subscribers. Microsoft makes hundreds of millions of dollars every single month. They have live service games such as Halo Infinite, which generates revenue. Sony doesn't have that. Sony releases one big game a year, and they rely on basically all the sales from that game for like revenue. Why do you think in court Sony was concerned about losing Call of Duty? Because they make a lot of money. That 30%, that makes Sony a lot of money every single year. And if they pulled COD, it would actually hurt PlayStation. Not permanently, but in the short term it would. And basically this graph showed that, like, they are behind. And this isn't a hate on a PlayStation show. Like, PlayStation, they've done some great things. They clearly know their fan base because they keep putting out these third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure games which people buy up. And people keep talking about quality, even though I think quality and variety don't necessarily mean separate things. But I think Sony is behind in the sense that their business model just is nowhere near Microsoft. Sony is still stuck in the age where you buy this game, it sells at its peak in the first month, and then it tears down over time, and they wait for the next game or maybe DLC, and their consumerism practices don't make any sense. They charge people for remasters. By the way, everything I'm about to say, people let slide. People whine about Microsoft and cry about them going third party, but Sony charges for upgrades most of the time. They are clearly thinking about wanting to raise the price to $80. The leak actually listed. I have to be careful with what I say, but the leak basically Sony want to raise the price of things. And it's because they don't have revenue coming from alternate sources. If you buy a game that's in Game Pass, you get a discount. It's an enticement. You're enticed to buy a game that's in Game Pass. And well, where am I going with it? Like, Logan, what's your thought on like Sony thinking they're behind when it comes to the whole business practices and business model of how they work?
Well, I mean, you remember when the ABK was first announced for being acquired, and Matt Booty had that really famous punch quote about basically their Blockbuster and we're Netflix, and this reflects that mindset. Like they are still holding on to a has been very successful and tried and true method for them, but this is 2024. This isn't, the 90s or the early 2000s or even the 2010s anymore. What consistently worked has shown over time that it's started to get diminishing returns. And like as much money as they pump into these suckers, like you have to again be careful how accurate and much detail you give on some of these things, but some of the budgets that were in those documents for games is completely unsustainable unless you were selling these games like $100 and like a ton of copies sold the way that they were doing it. It just was just not feasible, and they have finally gone, oh, you know what, I think we screwed up here. I think Microsoft actually had a good idea with this whole subscription thing and having diversity of games to where not every game is a $200 million budget or it takes 5 to 6 years to get out and lives or dies by, some review scores and a month or two of sales. Like having diversity to where you can have some smaller titles that sell for $20 to $40, or have life surface elements to where you can buy skins or buy expansions or keep going, have a reason to keep playing this thing and investing in it. I love Sony story games. They're very good. They're very well crafted, even though they kind of do start to blend a little bit. And, there's the sad dad narrative, which, it's partly joking, but actually partly accurate too. To where they're very good at what they do, but if that becomes all they're known for, that's a problem. So they were trying to adjust by making all these live service games, but lo and behold, they waited decades, I'd say a decade too late to start. And you know what? Turns out these things aren't games you could just spin out of a hat at a moment's notice and make be successful at them. You have to have had years of experience. They bought Bungie, thought Bungie could help spearhead that. Turns out Bungie was way over their head at the moment. And so they weren't really, you shouldn't have the blind leaving the blind. And that's what was happening. So all their financial issues, all their game development cost issues, they were spooked big time about the ABK thing because they're like, oh my goodness, if we lose, the COD premium experience or all these titles we just printed money on trees with, that would be big for us. So then they went across the globe and fought tooth and nail and came off like petulant children about this whole thing, saying that they wouldn't survive without it. While everybody knew they would survive without it, it just wouldn't be as, primrose cherry as it was. So the fact that it's come to this point now shows that, you know what? Sony's an empire that's, it's got a little bit of some cracks in the foundation. They're not as pristine and invincible as we thought. And they can be beaten. And If Xbox has its act together and has a good plan going forward, they can beat them. Whether they ever close a quote console sales gap or not is another thing. But as far as revenue and, popularity and mindshare, yes, they can beat them.
Yeah, the reason I bring up the whole like Sony's like plans and then being worried about it all is that, like I said, Sony relies on these big games. Like the budgets of these AAA games now in general are stupid. Like 200, $300 million, and then like look at Spider-Man. That cost what, $300 million or something, and people play it for 19 hours and then they move on to the next game. And there's not like, if that game sells a lot, there's no problem with that. But it's the fact that you have to, you need that game to sell that well. You need like one of the reasons why Bethesda got bought out by Microsoft is, one, Bethesda wanted to be bought, but also if they have a big game like a big RPG that doesn't do well, that sinks the entire company. Like if Starfield launched in a broken state, like if it was going to launch when it was originally going to launch, right? It would be like the Cyberpunk 2.0, and it would have been possibly the end of Bethesda. But the fact that Microsoft picked them up to be able to put that extra year in, and Bethesda had this sort of blanket now, right? They were able to put out the game later at a higher quality, and fortunately for everyone, it works. But like Sony relies on these like $200-300 million games, and if one of them doesn't work, that's bad. But that's why I'm talking about the whole Banjo thing. Banjo is a smaller game. Microsoft is willing to make smaller games. Like we got Pentiment. Pentiment isn't the kind of game you would have seen from Microsoft 10 years ago. Like if any of those games like Pentiment or just a smaller scale game was brought up, they would probably laugh at the developers, because those games could not sell on any scale millions of copies in the traditional sense. And that's why I think why we're going to see these smaller games come back, like, Banjo-Kazooie and all that stuff. Anyway, before we continue, we have another super chat for $4.99 by Nick W. Thank you very much. He says, Sony did have live service games back during the PlayStation 3. With games like Mag and Little Big Planet, they did have smaller budgets, but they didn't sell. You're 100% right. The PS3 era was amazing for games, right? The PlayStation 3 was really expensive, and it was a joke because of its price. But early on, people joked about that console not having games because they were right. But do you know what Sony did? In time, they invested in money. So they invested in games. So from like 2008 onwards, like they were releasing these different games all the time. You had platformers, you had multiplayer games, you had third-person shooters, first-person shooters, you had action games. They were all over the place, but that was the cool thing. If you had a PlayStation 3 and a collection of games, I guarantee you had a really diverse set of games, because that's what PlayStation was about that generation when they started pumping out games. Variety. And like, if you look at everything they make now, it's a big $200 million game. It's a third-person action-adventure game. And there's nothing wrong with third-person action-adventure games. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. But like, if you rely on those games to do well, and that's all you're coming out with, there's people going to get burnt out in time. And if one game doesn't succeed, you're going to tank one of the studios. And I think that's why Microsoft, they are willing to make smaller games, because there's less risk. So over time, we're going to see AAA games, AA games, small games, big games, multiplayer, and all that stuff. And I think that's where, the Banjo thing, I do think will happen. But yeah, Nick W is right about that, because the PlayStation 3 era, variety. If you look at anyone's PlayStation 3 collection, if they post a picture or do a video or anything, look at the variety. You've got everything. Platformers, shooters, JRPGs, everything. Racing games. Action racing games. Arcade racing games. It was crazy back then. And it's a shame that they're not like that now. I do think they will get better. Look at Microsoft. They never used to have any focus whatsoever on single player. And do you know, after the years of them being kicked down constantly, do you know what Microsoft's mainly investing in now when it comes to games? Single player. Like, they are, I'm not even kidding, they have over 20 single player games in development. I'll have to check the list again. At least I'll be modest. They have over 18 or 17 single player games in development. which I have a video coming about soon. But like, it's impressive because back 6-7 years ago, everyone would refer to Microsoft as the Xbox is the shooter box, is the live service box, but it's not like that now. Every game they're coming out with is single player. And you know what? We have to move on to the really big stuff. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we move on?
Oh, not really. That I think we covered that pretty effectively. Just that, except on the PlayStation thing, you were right, Nick W. I'd forgotten about some of that stuff, but as you mentioned on diversity, like that was a good era as far as just creativity. The 360 and the PS3 era were just phenomenal. We always talk about it,
Yeah.
but you got like Heavenly Sword, you have Killzone franchise, you had Resistance, Infamous. Like they had a lot of interesting stuff to go along with Uncharted and Last of Us and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think I'm always talking about the 360 generation? If I had a time machine, game wise, to go back to a time, I would choose that generation. It was so interesting. It was so good, and like the variety from AAA and to indie is just it was nothing like we see now. And it was the same on the PlayStation 3. Like when they got good, they got really good. Again, everyone's PlayStation 3 collection began terribly. Like you had that dragon game, I think it was called Lair or something.
Lair.
Yeah, Lair, and like they had some very bad games. You had giant enemy crabs, but over time they learned, they got better, and I think that Sony conditioned all their players that you need these AAA games, AAA animations, all these games with like tons of animations, for them to be good because of quote unquote quality. Well, Microsoft, they do have quality games now, but they also have smaller games. And speaking of smaller games, Hi-Fi Rush. People loved that game. I loved that game. It was shadow dropped the day it was announced last January during the Xbox Developer Direct 2023. And people have loved it since. And it's a very fresh game. And let's get it all out the bag. This year started with rumors of a Developer Direct. It was literally the 2nd of January. Rumors out of the gate of the year. Xbox fans looking positive into the future, as we should, because Xbox has a really good roadmap ahead. And we hear about this Developer Direct. I was hearing rumors about a Developer Direct. And it gets to this weekend. Hell breaks loose. A source that, whether people want to believe or not, online, this person said that Hi-Fi Rush is coming to PlayStation and Switch. And then over the past 2 days, there's been absolute pandemonium online. By the way, I'll get this out of the way quick. I don't think people need to be worried about Xbox going third party. I'll get to my point. People are losing their minds for 2 days. My feed was filled with people saying, I'm done with the Xbox. They going third party and all this stuff. And then the Sea of Thieves thing came out. People losing their mind over rumors. Because that's all rumors are at the end of the day. Until they're proven as fact, rumors. Granted, I do think Microsoft shouldn't be in the place where these rumors should even if these rumors are just rumors, they shouldn't exist. Microsoft has said in the past that certain games will be multi-platform, like Fallout 76 and its future expansions makes sense. Minecraft and content makes sense. Things like that, Call of Duty, Diablo, all that stuff. That makes sense. Those are existing franchises that are continuing to go on. But when it comes to Hi-Fi Rush, this was a new IP, a new game, came out under Xbox, had investment from Xbox. It is, all intensive purposes, a first-party Xbox title. And these rumors set people on their heads because it's like, does this mean Halo's going to Switch? By the way, I've seen people in the industry port beg Halo to the Switch. This is why, when these rumors came out, by the way, we've seen two sets of people online. We've seen people lose their minds, and we've seen people reply to those people with, oh, so you want less people to play these games. Let me tell you, if you start wanting every game on everything, I wish we lived in that universe. I wish every game was on everything. I wish you were playing Mario and Uncharted on your Xbox. I wish you were playing Killer Instinct on your Switch. I wish you were playing Super Smash Brothers on your PlayStation, right? That would be amazing, right? To have all those games across all those platforms. Unfortunately, we do not live in that happy alternate universe where I have a toilet made of gold and £1 billion. We just don't, right? Console exclusives exist because they have to, right? And whenever I see these people saying, hey, Halo should be put on a Switch, and no one says the same thing the other way around. Nobody says, oh, I want Wind Waker on Xbox. They don't realize that they are part of the problem. These console exclusives, they do exist for a reason. Another thing is that these people bring up this, and I know everyone listening has heard this. Xbox does not care about console sales. That is the biggest lie that is being told across the industry for the past several years, because they focus on Game Pass. They don't care about sales. That is stupid. They care about console sales. They focus on Game Pass because that is constant recurring revenue. When it comes to a console sale, the console sold, that's it and done, right? Someone can buy an Xbox or PlayStation or a Switch for one game and never touch the ecosystem again. Ever touch the ecosystem again. And there are people that do that. People that buy PlayStations and Xboxes just for COD and Madden, that's all they play. So unless they buy microtransactions, Microsoft and Sony do not make money from that consumer. So when it comes to the console sales thing, people just say it because they're concerned about Game Pass, they don't care about sales. Microsoft are advertising consoles. They make these bundles for sales. So like Microsoft might be in third when it comes to console sales. The consumer, you listening, you are at number one. You're getting more variety than ever before. You're getting more content than ever before at the best price than ever. And like, look, the whole third party mentioning being brought up thing, it got people spooked. People freaked out. And even me as a content creator and also an Xbox fan, it doesn't make any sense for Microsoft to put every game on every platform. It just doesn't. Now, the only thing, and I don't think it's true, but let's say hypothetically the Hi-Fi Rush thing is true. That's a game that was shadow dropped, and I do know for a fact that a lot of people bought it. Microsoft was very happy with how that sold and performed. That's one of those games where it's single player, it's not a live service title, and if you look at Microsoft's adverts for or trailers for Game Pass, there's no Hi-Fi Rush in there. It's the big ones like Doom. You probably have Call of Duty advertised there, Minecraft, Halo, Gears, that type of stuff, Sea of Thieves. And those games are like front and center in Game Pass adverts and trailers. Things like Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush aren't really in there. Not really. So when I hear the Hi-Fi Rush thing, I think Microsoft's looking at, they've maxed out, I would say, mass sales potential for that game. Because it's not getting new content. It's a game that came out, people played it, they loved it. They've played the arcade mode thing they put in the expansion, or the free update, and they're not going back to it. So I think that Microsoft's looking at their games and looking at the sales curve off, the bell curve. And when it's reached its lowest point, I think maybe Microsoft, for certain titles, are willing to put them on other platforms. So nobody else is buying Hi-Fi Rush, because it's not a game that's getting marketed. It's a game that people find in Game Pass now. It's not getting any new trailers. So I think that maybe Microsoft are looking at not going third party, but putting certain games on other platforms when all sales potential is completely done. And that's where I am with that situation. Like, Logan, what's your thought on that? Because it's been a wild week and people have all sorts of theories, but that's just my theory.
I mean, that's a logical and sound and reasonable theory to me. I kind of have a slightly different version. To me, like, Hi-Fi Rush, I think theoretically makes sense on other platforms. Like you said, single player experience, smaller title, newer title, new IP that they're trying to cultivate, get a broader audience to experience it. It appeals to a different clientele that may or may not be more predominantly on some of these other platforms, to where, like, especially a Switch, for example, like, If that was on Switch, I think it would do really well on Switch, personally. It fits very well with the vibes of, classic, it feels like a GameCube era game to me in a good way. GameCube or original Xbox era game. Like, and I've noticed, like, I kind of feel this way, and I've noticed a lot of other people feel this way, is that if something went to Switch, it's less of a big deal or a, like, that feels weird for a game than going to straight up PlayStation. Like, I think Switch feels like there's kind of a happy medium. Like, a lot of people who own an Xbox also have a Switch. Or it's kind of like our portable thing. And then there's also been some games that have, achievements already on it, like Ori and some other stuff. To where, you know, it feels less foreign of a idea. Do I personally think they should do that? No. But I would understand that one more. Like, I think, especially their. It just frankly, it opens up Pandora's box. If you start, you know, hoarding all your stuff, or at what point do you stop? Like, what criteria do you get? Like, this is not like a 2 minute conversation. This is like, okay, do we treat, is it like massive franchises like, Elder Scrolls Online was Bethesda made, obviously established, is on all these platforms. Fallout 76, thriving community, all these platforms. Do you make it going forward where it's games like that are multi-plat just right off the bat? And it's just like, hey, big multiplayer focused experiences are multiplat. It's for the better of the game and the community. So that's why we're doing it. Like, okay, that makes sense in some regards. But then someone will throw out, well, what about Halo? Halo's got a massive multiplayer component, or Gears of War had a massive multiplayer component. What about those? But then you get into a whole other discussion of like, okay, but aren't those, pillar key tentpole franchises that are like icons to the brand? Like, you see Pikachu, you think of Nintendo. Like, obviously. You see Kratos, you think of PlayStation. You see Master Chief, you think of Xbox. Or Marcus Phoenix, you think of Xbox. Like, to me, there's a big difference between an Elder Scrolls Online type experience or massive multiplayer thing that brings all these communities together so that they can just be even, more fish in the sea, so to speak, for these games than for a game that is so corely intrinsically intertwined with the brand's identity. To me, if, yes, statistically, from a purely cold hearted math numbers perspective, Halo or Gears of War or any of these Xbox games would do better if they were on all these platforms. But you could say the same exact thing for God of War, Legend of Zelda, Mario, all these. Like, you don't think Mario would make bank on a PlayStation or an Xbox, or Halo would do numbers on PlayStation, which has been needing a shooter multiplayer game, or you know vice versa? Like, of course, it would make more money and it would do well, but it's a trade-off. Like, you have to decide at what point do you trade brand identity and fan awareness and loyalty for pure numbers and money. And I think that that's the whole, kind of just sums up the whole conundrum that's been going on. Because people are like, some people are so focused on the game and the raw numbers, and some are focused on, hey, I love Xbox. This is key to Xbox. Why would you do this with PlayStation? That goes against everything Xbox is. And it opens up a whole thing to where, frankly, this is entirely at Xbox's feet. This is a self you know, blasted their foot with a cannon scenario because they just open their mouth and blab so much stuff all the time about case by case basis or this or that. Like, if they just had an established criteria that, hey, Sea of Thieves is kind of, in a way, like an Elder Scrolls Online or a Fallout 76. So we feel like it has tapped its potential here, and it is a happy, charming game that covers a wide breadth of stuff. It makes sense to expand, and we'll put it on other platforms. So games like that will be multi-plat, and we'll go back through our back catalog and reassess some things kind of like that. Grounded would do huge numbers on Switch or PlayStation if they wanted to. Stuff like that. But I think it comes to a point to where you just cannot put your main major franchises on another competitor's platform, or you are damaging your brand and your fan loyalty. And I think Hi-Fi Rush honestly fits into that category. You saw it in the hype videos for ABK acquisition getting done, other Bethesda reels, Xbox award reels. Like, they are all in 100% invested in Tango. And they want them to be the best they possibly can be and be their Japanese, you know, flag bearer, like, studio. Like, hey, Xbox belongs here. Like, to me, taking that and going, well, now that we finally had some success in Japan, let's go ahead and just put this game that was only on Xbox on the Japanese platforms so that there's really no attractive reason for, like, you know what I mean? I'm sorry this was a long topic, but it's not a simple black or white, and to me I think this is entirely self-inflicted, and they have to get their messaging better cuz this is a mess of their own doing.
Yeah, by the way, what I was talking about, if people are listening confused with what I said, the whole monetary reason for me thinking why they put certain games on other platforms, that's not what I think they should do. I think like, I did business at college, so like I have two different ways of thinking about it. There's the business sense about it, and then there's my personal preference. I think Microsoft should be putting Chai on the bloody box of the console itself in Japan and in a lot of places in Asia and Europe, because Chai is a very likable character, very unique looking character. Plus, I love the style of Hi-Fi Rush. Like, I think that Hi-Fi Rush should be as important to Microsoft as Halo, as Gears, because it's something different. It's a rhythm action platformer. People like I've never heard a single person say, you know what, I do not like this character from Hi-Fi Rush. Like, everyone likes those characters. And personally, I think Microsoft should trust in their characters. And, like, obviously, from a business perspective, they're not going to put everything on other platforms. And bear in mind, this is just rumors. So, like, we could all just be wasting our time talking about this. But I just want to get this out there before we move on that if there's a reason for it, like Microsoft wouldn't invest into new hardware and studios if they were going third party like this. They just wouldn't. And like the case by case basis thing, if it does happen, they need to fully come out and describe what do they mean by that. But right now, I think people just need to chill, because if they said, like, if a rumor came out and said, look, Halo Infinite is going to PlayStation, that's when I think people should panic. But none of these leaks were even mentioned in the court case files when we know about games coming out for years from Bethesda. So I think people need to calm down. But outside of the business thing, like you said, Microsoft should be trying to make the world know that, I'll just use Chai as the example. Like, Chai is an Xbox character. You see Hi-Fi Rush, you think Xbox. But, like I've said before, in an ideal world, we'd play and everything. And like you said, like, if Mario Kart 8 was on Xbox and PlayStation, that game would probably have over 100 million, 150 million in sales. Because every other kart racer is trying to be Mario Kart. They don't play as good as Mario Kart. They don't look as good as Mario Kart. But do you know what's on the weaker console and performs best? looks best, plays best, bloody Mario Kart. The Nickelodeon racing games can't touch them. The Sonic racing games can't touch Mario Kart. Nothing else. And those games don't sell on those consoles. But Mario Kart sells like hotcakes. So, like, of course, the games would sell more on other platforms, but like, Microsoft has to trust in like they make money each year, or I should say each month, off Game Pass. Like, it shouldn't be an issue. They make it more than enough money. It's a weird situation. Anyway, we'll get into the really juicy stuff now, because look, if what I've just said doesn't happen, there's no games that go to other platforms, then people have been arguing for 2 days for absolutely no reason. No reason. Like, we don't know. And if they do announce something, and like on a random Tuesday we see a trailer just pop up on YouTube for Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation, that would be very weird. I can't see them doing that. And if some games do go elsewhere, we'll be given a reason, a why, and what it means for the future. Speaking of the future, Xbox, like, they have their stuff together when it comes to like the roadmap. I've always talked about, this is why I'm a positive person for Xbox right now, is because Microsoft, in their history of existing, they've never had a roadmap. Not really. Games are being cancelled, pushed back. Like, remember Starfield? 2022 was arguably going to be Xbox's best year ever, and then every title got delayed, including the partner titles. Stalker 2 got delayed. Atomic Heart got delayed. Like, everything got delayed. And now Microsoft's in a place where they have so many games coming out. Well, I'll list them now. So Microsoft has these games confirmed coming out this year: Avowed, Senua's Saga, HellBlade 2, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, Call of Duty Black Ops Gulf War, Stalker 2, Towerborn, Ara History Untold, Starfield Shattered Space, yes, that's an expansion, Ark 2, Indiana Jones. And there's rumours of games coming out like The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remaster, Age of Mythology, the Halo Battle Royale, Forza Horizon 6, South of Midnight, and something called Clin. I just saw this on Idle Sloth's account. I don't know what that is, but either way, that is an absolute stacked year. And I did a comparison. In 2023, Microsoft's roadmap was 6 games. And by the end of the year, they've released 12. So it's already looking like a good year. And let's talk about Xbox Developer Directs. Now, I think Xbox gamers, this is what I mean, the duality of man, where you have Xbox gamers losing their mind. Like, my entire feed, that's why I was barely on Twitter yesterday. I was just sick of opening it, people losing their mind. It was like that scene from Chicken Run where everyone's losing it. People losing their marbles. But anyway, people go from, it's the end of Xbox, to, oh my god, Xbox is back, it's amazing. The Developer Direct gets confirmed for January 18th. And they confirmed to show Ninja Theory, Obsidian's Avowed, I think it's that Ara game, and surprise, surprise, not to me, Machine Games Indiana Jones, where we are confirmed to see bloody gameplay. Everyone in my feed on Twitter losing their marbles. It's like they got a free trip to Disney World, but Disney World's made of chocolate. Amazing. And I think that was pretty funny. Like, I've been biting my lip for like a week. Just don't mention Indiana Jones. Don't mention it. Because like, Indiana Jones has been slated to come out for a while, but like the pandemic pushed everything back. Remember, that game's been made in Sweden. A lot of offices around Europe were closed. So we were originally going to have Indiana Jones in like 2022. Like, crazy to think about, but that was the case. And that game just got pushed back, and yeah, it's coming out. Oh, before we continue, we have another super chat by Nick W for $1.99. He says, I believe that Clin is the Double Fine game. See, I keep up with every Xbox game studio that's coming out, every game that's coming out. I've never even heard of that. But again, there's so many games in development that it's getting to the point where it's hard to cover these games. I put it like this, I have videos planned to come out this year that are covering 11 different Xbox exclusives that are going to come out throughout the year. that isn't including the videos I'm going to be making about games that haven't been announced yet. So it's like, it's a lot to cover, and I'm sure Clinton's going to be the next one I have to cover. But thank you very much for the $1.99 for reminding me, because there's just too many games, which is a good problem to have. But basically, it's stacked. You know, Indiana Jones, I think it was good. Like, Logan, obviously your feed today was a complete 180 from yesterday.
Oh yeah, it was like I mean, it's like darkness turned to light. Like everybody had lost hope. Now it's like cloud 9, um Xbox can do no wrong, trust and Phil, like all this stuff. I'm like, weren't you guys like ready to like pitchforks and torches like march like yesterday? Like seriously, one announcement that's an actual confirmation of something compared to rumors has you ready to, switch your tune immediately. It's like the gaming community in particular has like TikTok brain big time. Like attention span of a Pomeranian. It's like just like it's like, oh my gosh, we're all gonna just boom and it's over, and then it's just like squirrel, and then it's like something good happens and they run towards that. It's just comically bad. Like it's a bad case of it, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's good to say at the same time, because like, and I've been on Twitter since 2012. I've been covering gaming on YouTube for a few years now. But like, every time there's bad news, people lose their mind, and then we get some good news, and then everything's good again. And I've seen a meme go around today. It's like, oh, Xbox is back. Oh, Xbox is gone. Oh, Xbox is back. But look, it's just one of those things. We have to learn from it. But hey, the developer direct, it's literally 10 days away, and it's great. You know, people have a lot to look forward to this year. People will be worried about Xbox going third party, but look, no matter what moves they make, people need to take a step back. It's going to be fine. Anyway, we have another super chat for £2 by Pyromad. Thank you very much. He says it's not Clint, it's Clint Jamie as ovens for pottery. Yeah. I the thing is, right. I know. You're just joking, right? But like, where did the names for all these games come from? Like, I feel like
for
sorry, what were you saying?
okay, go ahead. Sorry, I was like, I actually know this one. But,
Well, I don't. I have no idea.
This one it's kiln, and it's about the process of molding and forming pottery. And the game, there's some footage of it on YouTube that, Double Fine had uploaded from a long time ago when this game was deep in development and they had to pause it to finish up Psychonauts 2. And basically now they've gone back to put the final touches on it before release. It's kind of like a party type game. It has some Human Fall Flat vibes to it a little bit, to where you're these clay looking pot figure dudes that look like the guys from Elden Ring, but in a fun, artsy, more cartoony vibe. And you can swing swords and do all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it's all about you're these little clay figures, and if they break or shatter, you remold and reshape a new character out of clay. So that's what that whole name's about.
Okay, well, now I feel like a dummy because I misread Pyro and Nick W's post. Because, so long story short, on my end, the text is super tiny. Because for some reason, whenever I set my PC for 4K, the font and everything goes super small, and I don't know why. So I thought I was reading Clin. It does say Killen. I lost 10 brain cells just realizing that. So yeah, that's my bad. I'll fix
It's
that.
okay.
I'll fix that for next time. I was thinking Clin. What's Clin? It does say Killen. So yeah, that's my bad. But yeah, I'm all forward to new types of games, and plus Double Fine Rock. They make really cool things. Like Psychonauts 2 was arguably one of the best games in the past 10 years, in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, it looks like it's going to be a great developer direct because, again, Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones, and again, that's confirmed as an Xbox exclusive. I think people are going to be really happy with that. By the way, I hinted at this game last week, because I've known it's going to be at the Direct for a while. However, I've been trying my best to find out if it's first person or third person. Guess what I've been able to find out? Absolutely nothing. For me personally, I love machine games. If anyone isn't familiar with them, they made the Wolfenstein games, especially the last few. Those were spectacular. Absolute crazy action, but the first-person shooters. And machine games tends to make first-person shooters. They tend to make first-person games. So I've always assumed that Indiana Jones would be a first-person game. It's not really a question I've asked. It's because, I'm just used to their games being first person. But I see in my feed a lot, people want more third-person games from Xbox. I do think that if Indiana Jones is first person, for a lot of people, I think it's going to deflate the game a bit. For me personally, I love Indiana Jones and I love machine games. Whatever they make, I'm sure is going to be bloody awesome. Personally, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it. I just want a good game. I play 50-50, basically. 50% first person, 50% third person. I played Starfield in third person. Yet I'm enjoying Avatar, and that's first person. So I don't really have an opinion on it. Logan, what's your thought? Because I do see a segment of the community that do want third person Indiana Jones.
Well, an ideal compromise would be do the Bethesda method of, having both, frankly. Just where you can play in third person or first person. On one hand, I do understand the folks that really want it third person, because it's think about it. Indiana Jones is an iconic character. Blade is coming out in years from now from Arcane, and it goes against what their traditional experience is. They're going okay, you are Blade, you want to see Blade, you want to experience Blade. We're doing it from this perspective, even though that's traditionally not what we're used to. So I understand why a lot of people would be like, if I'm Indiana Jones, I want to be able to fully experience from behind, see the hat, see the whip, see the revolver, the jumping, or the see from the front, all these different aspects of artifact, interaction or whatever. On another hand, I could totally see first person, maybe this is an Indiana Jones origin story or an earlier story, and he's less, established, and you're molding the legend of this character, and you're first person, and it's you pick up this golden idol, or you grab this relic and puzzle, and you manually crank it and adjust it, and you see it those old Skyrim wheel things, those puzzles with the dragonfly claws and stuff like that, to where I could totally personally, I'm fine with it either way, but I understand why both sides are passionate about it.
Yeah, the ideal thing, like you said, would be both. As we've seen in previous Bethesda games before Starfield, having both doesn't mean either's good, because you'd have a floaty third person, and you'd have a first person that's okay. Fortunately, with Starfield, they got both to work fantastic. First person combat looks and feels amazing. Third person combat and traversal looks and feels amazing. But that's the only game I can think about where both perspectives work. But if they can do it, I'm sure they can. But again, machine games, traditionally a first-person developer. But the fact that we see in gameplay, it's blatantly coming out this year. And I don't know, for the longest time, people thought Microsoft wasn't really interested in licensed titles. That's not the case. Blade's licensed, Indiana Jones licensed. I have a feeling we will hear about a Star Wars game in the next year. So that's good. And I think that when it comes to, if you look at the developer direct of last year, they announced the show with 4 games, and then when the trailer started for the show, there was a spot for a 5th game, and that was Hi-Fi Rush. And this year, they've got 4 games listed on the little poster thing. Are they going to do the same again? Could they possibly do 2 shadow drops in a row at 2 developer direct? Because, like, look, the Hi-Fi Rush thing last year surprised everyone. Like, I think it was the show before last year of this podcast. We were talking about the leaked concept art. I don't know if you remember, Logan, where the leaked concept art was a 1v1 PvP game.
Yeah, it looked dramatically different.
Yeah. It was more like Tron, and it was literally just 1v1 PvP third-person shooter. And the game that was shown, blatantly not a 1v1 PvP shooter, like completely different thing altogether. Personally, I think that leak for Hi-Fi Rush last year was actually planned, because it's nothing like it. But anyway, could we possibly see a shadow drop tomorrow? I should say on the 19th. I'm all over the place. Apologies. But Lauren, do you think we'll see a shadow drop? Because like they have so many studios making games now. And again, we didn't really know anything about Hi-Fi Rush. Like, do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible, yeah. Like, I wouldn't, bet the house on it, but I think there's a good chance there would be a shadow drop, and I think if there was to be a shadow drop, I think Kiln would be a pretty good choice. Or, there are several of the studios in Xbox, Bethesda, Activision, Blizzard, King. Wow, what an empire. That are working on several different games and projects. So it wouldn't shock me at all if they had one more thing at the end.
Honestly, I think that if there's a shadow drop, let's not say a shadow drop. I think one of the games that they will show there that hasn't been revealed yet, I think the Oblivion remaster is going to be there. Because my original prediction was the Fallout thing, but Fallout 3 has been in development less time than Oblivion. So I'm kind of leaning 99% that Oblivion remake. It's been listed as both, by the way, in documents, remake and remaster. It could be either, but I personally think we will see the Oblivion remaster at the developer directors there. Who knows? Hell, it's Microsoft. They'll probably shadow drop the thing, because I think people will go nuts for that. And Logan, I don't know if you've played Oblivion lately. Can you remember how bad that game looks now?
Yeah, I remember being blown away when I first played it and how incredible it was. But yeah, going back now, I mean, those orcs are pretty rough.
Yeah,
and like the dialogue, and just like when the guard is like criminal scum and his head twirls around like 360, and like, yeah.
Yeah, like the game, like the thing is, I've always been an advocate for BC, so have you, and this is where someone will end up writing in the comments, but you don't like remastered. It's like, no, we have the option to play the original. People aren't forced to buy the new thing. That's the benefit of BC. They can work on remasters and still have access to the original. And look, at the time, Oblivion was groundbreaking on console. It really was. If you fired up Oblivion when it came out on 360, people were blown away, because no first-person game or first-person RPG looked like that. It was leagues ahead of Morrowind, and it was just impressive. But if you play that game now, that was back when the grass texture was just green, If developers wanted to have grass on the ground, you didn't get grass, you got green. That they would just paint the ground green and call it grass. And that's what that game's like. You go around places, you walk around in the forest, it's a green floor. And you know how forests have trees everywhere? These had these sticks probably 50 meters apart, where it didn't resemble a forest, but you kind of just agreed with it that it was. Yeah, it needs it, but I think that'll be a big thing. And plus, they could put that in Game Pass advertising as well. That's the business part of me coming out. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great day. I have seen people wonder about Gears of War. I do think we're going to get Gears of War news this year. I just don't think it's going to be at the developer direct. at all. And when it comes to Hellblade 2 is a weird game because that game was announced with the Xbox Series X in 2019, but then we went into a pandemic and all the offices in the UK started to shut down. Well, if I remember correctly, Ninja Theory in Nottingham, I think they're in Nottingham. They're down south in England, but all those offices were closed. They couldn't work from there. So, like, for basically 18 months, that's called 16 to be fair, they couldn't make games how they normally would. They couldn't work in the mocap studio because of all the mandates in the UK. So, like, that game was put off for ages. We got the gameplay in 2022, I believe, at the Game Awards, and then we got a trailer last summer at the Game Showcase for Xbox where they just showed Senua walking around a cave and then called it gameplay. And people were like, when are we going to get combat? And then at the Game Awards, we got a bloody good trailer with combat, obviously walking and stuff, but mostly combat. And we still didn't get a release date outside of 2024. They've confirmed that at the developer direct that they are going to talk about the game behind the scenes, but I 1,000% believe that Hellblade 2 is going to get a release date, like, at the show, and it's going to release by June. Just putting it out there. Logan, do you think we'll see anything like a release date for Hellblade, or what other things do you think we could possibly see, even if it's just one thing?
I like your take on the Oblivion remaster or remake. I think it'd be a great spot for it. I kind of honestly think like it would also be a good spot for the Fallout 3 remake as well. Potentially with, the Fallout show about to come out. And or maybe they save it and they release it along with the Series X upgrade for Fallout 4 on the same day around the showtime. That might make more sense probably. But as far as Hellblade, it sounds like they're going to do another behind the scenes kind of roulette thing and show some gameplay as well. And I have astronomically high expectations for that game. Like, whatever. I'll have a thermonuclear hot take. I think it'll be a 90 plus meta and will be, if not game of the year, in the final 4 or 5. Like, I'm very, very confident in that.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's going to have some ridiculously high scores. Especially that seems to be the type of game that'll resonate with people. But man, it's a good time. It's a good time for Xbox fans because look, like over the past 48 hours, people were losing their mind left and right. Sorry if we're going over 2 hours. I try to keep it under, but like it's just an exciting time because for 48 hours, people are losing their minds. But if you take a step back from it, they literally, even if everything we've heard in the rumor, if it does come true, really think about it. Microsoft has more exclusives listed than ever before in development. They've promised exclusive AAA Japanese RPGs. They've promised this. They said it's coming. They're working with Japanese studios more. They have more studios than ever. A lot of studios making multiple games. Yeah, hell, you have bloody Obsidian. They have like 3 games in development. And I think like if you're a fan of Xbox and that style of content, and like even if you're on PC and you enjoy the Xbox like centric content, like there's a lot of that stuff coming. So let's say hypothetically the rumors do happen. You're still getting Indiana Jones, you're still getting Avowed, you're still getting Flight Simulator, although I'm really looking forward to Flight Simulator. You're getting Towerborn, Stalker, all that stuff on Game Pass. Like, it's a good time. But outside of the rumors, like, I think 2023 is going to go down as one of the best years in gaming ever. I think 2024 will actually be Xbox's best year in gaming ever because everything seems to be running smoothly when it comes to release dates. Again, Indiana Jones gets announced with a CGI trailer, 3 years ago? And then all of a sudden, we getting gameplay at its next shown. Like, that's weird for Microsoft. going from that to gameplay without any mention in between at whatsoever. No concept art, right? I rake into all of Microsoft's leaks and stuff. We've not seen any concept art for Indiana Jones. Nothing. So we don't even know what that game would even look like. But it's an exciting time for Xbox fans because I've just seen in chat. Yes, I am nocturnal. I have problems sleeping. So I'm up late and doing the podcast and the Twitter stuff at late. That's how I roll. But yeah, it's an exciting time. And the again, I think Gears 6 or something Gears will be related in the summer showcase. I think Xbox fans need to chill out, calm down. And by the way, like I was saying earlier in the show, I think Chai from Hi-Fi Rush should be brought to Master Chief's level when it comes to marketing. Chai would be huge in Japan for Xbox. He should be the Xbox mascot, not Master Chief. It should be Chai because if you've seen any pictures of Tokyo and stuff, I think they would love it. I really need to go there someday, but it's an exciting time. So yeah, Logan, you have to admit, it is a roller coaster of a ride being part of this. I love the community, but it gets tiring sometimes.
Yeah. I love the Xbox community, and I wouldn't trade them. I love planting my flag in the Xbox community. Love it. But yeah, just gotta roll with the punches a little bit more. Just, it's not everything is doomed and then everything is saved. Flip a coin every day. Things have ebbs and flows, seasons. Things will be fine. Even like Jamie said, worst case scenario, every one of those rumors was true that Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves went to PlayStation and Switch. Okay, it happened. Then what? It's not a guarantee that their major tentpole franchises are, or that all their other games are. And at the end of the day, we love the games. And so, as long as the good games keep coming, I think the community will be happy.
Yeah, and before we end the show, I was going to mention this earlier, but so apparently Hypercon's coming out with an original Xbox Series S controller. I don't know.
Oh yes, the smaller.
Yeah, and bear in mind, I like that smaller controller. I thought it was really comfortable back in the day. It also has Hall effect joysticks. So if you have a controller right now, and if you're like me, you go through them a lot, because I have a habit of dropping Xbox controllers all the time. I swear, every single controller I get, I knock off a desk by accident, and it falls on the sticks, and I get drift. It's so annoying, and it's my fault every time because I'm clumsy. But when I hear Hall effect sticks, and if you don't know, you know how we've had a stick drift in game controllers since the Nintendo 64, and you just leave the controller still, and your character would be moving on screen. Hall effect sticks, that doesn't happen because the manufacturer actually decided to put some money into it because the technology's been around for years, but Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo don't want to give people Hall effect sticks. That's a rant for another day. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
One little news item that popped, I noticed while we were on the show is Twitch apparently decided to join in on the jobs purge thing, and they are cutting 500 positions, which is 35% of its staff. So Twitch isn't technically gaming, but it also deals a lot with gaming, so I thought we'd at least make a note of that.
Yeah, on the whole job losses across the industry, and we're hearing about this before Christmas. I know Insomniac knows about a studio that may get shut down. Embracer, they are awful. They are just an awful company. And like you said, Twitch isn't really gaming. Obviously we can't say certain things on the show and on my channel because of words. The amount of crazy things I've seen on Twitch in the past month, blows my mind. Like, Logan, I assume you're
It's
aware of what I'm talking about.
Florida.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I don't understand. Like, I put it like this on this channel, and if you're listening live or after the fact, we have to be very careful with what we say during the podcast, because if I say slight things that might be considered, naughty, or rude, or anything like that, instant demonetization. I can't even speak. Demonetization instantly, like without fail. And yeah, but on there's people getting up to everything live on bloody Twitch. By the way, Twitch is made for 13-year-olds and up, and that crap's going on. By the way, if you live in the UK, if people that do that stuff on camera on Twitch, there's a website for you. It's called Babe Station. Like, if you're from the UK, you know what I'm talking about. Like, those websites exist for adults, and they're doing it on a bloody gaming website. That makes no. And like, I don't have no problem with people doing that stuff, but don't do it on Twitch. Like, Twitch is a gaming and talk, streaming site made for 13 and up. It's not made for that stuff, adult stuff. But yeah. And it's sad to hear about the job losses, but like, the game industry, we'll just lump that in. Like, it's going through a tough time. And like, Twitch had its highest peak viewership during the pandemic, so they were probably making a lot of money in ad revenue. YouTube was the same. Views were up during the pandemic, but unfortunately, it's 2024 now, and we're just kicking off the year, and people are still getting fired. It's sad, but anyway, we'll be back next week. It's been an awesome show. Again, people need to calm down. Everyone in chat today has been amazing. Once again, I think, honestly, the best chat on YouTube. Not just saying that. I genuinely think that. We'll be back the same time next week. Try and keep it under 2 hours next time. The video I was going to put out last week, if you're just joining the show now or hearing it later, I burned my hand. Long story short, kettle knocked over onto my hand. Not a pretty sight. Haven't been able to use a mouse. But last week's video is going out this week. If you're interested in Xbox games, a lot of them, you may want to pay attention to that video. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Hope everyone has a good day. We are out. Peace, everybody.